To have you here, and without further ado, just fix this up here. Ooh, maybe a little bit of this. Yeah, that's what we want. We want that angle. Listen, so if you haven't joined our book club yet, join, like, and subscribe, and you'll be able to have the algorithm share with you. Yeah, just got out of the cold shower. When we have our lives, and obviously that's what we said, podcast, that's the main thing, interview people. And if you are in our club, on our newsletter, then we'll send it through when we have interviews with people. But ultimately what we're doing here is just reading, right now. Man, I'm going to the barber this week, and I'm like, it's a good thing I'm going to the barber. I don't know, or maybe it was the way I was sleeping on my hair. It was looking really weird. Anyway, I appreciate you for being here, and I just wanted to tell you, reading books will change your life. Maybe you're like, oh, I could just watch small clips of videos, and the truth is this: reading and watching clips of things won't necessarily change your life at all unless you start adjusting things in your life based on what you've learned. But what I can tell you is, myself, I had ADD, and to get over ADD, I started reading out loud, and then I realized it was really easy because I ca all the noise and all the extra thoughts that I would have, going on in my head, would get knocked out if I read out loud. So that was the main tip that helped me, um, get rid of my ADD, my ADHD for reading. I would read out loud. And so, as I was saying, what I can guarantee you is that when you read out loud, hey, Dawood, stay blessed. Appreciate you. Um, I sent you a message. Hope you have a good day today. And yeah, if I have time, I'll try to call while you're there, unless it's another day, but I thought it was today. I appreciate you. Yeah, so what I have noticed is when I'm reading out loud, I am actually getting more from the book. And it is the type of books you're reading too. You don't want to just read, fiction stories, but specifically the one we're reading right now by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Hey, Omir, appreciate y'all. If you're joining us for the first time for this book club reading, like and subscribe so the algorithm shows it to you more often. But specifically, today we're reading chapter 11 in Think and Grow Rich, which is The Mystery of Sex Transmutation, the 10th Step to Riches. And as you know, riches are monetary, and there is an organized plan for that in the book. But the way Andrew Carnegie endorsed it and told Napoleon Hill, it's more about the thoughts in the mind, those riches. And specifically, I'm doing this because a mentor had shared with me his secret. He started finding topics that he liked. Hey, Irfan, nice to see you. Um, yeah, like and subscribe to join our book club. Appreciate it. But yeah, my mentor's like, listen, if you take 2 years of your life, you just read 20 of the top books in these 5 categories, because I started my own business, and I was doing well. Ultimately, for me, I needed to start one because I had lost my job and I wasn't able to do anything else. But he said the 5 books in these categories: sales, marketing, networking, psychology, and self improvement. The top 20 books about in the category, and you just study and research those, you will change your life. And I think it was the third book. I was like, maybe it was the second one. Yeah, I think it was the second one. Maybe even the first one, to be fair. I was like, holy cow, I'm getting so much more from this because I'm reading every day, because I'm reading, close to an hour every day. I'm really digesting this book. And before I was like, oh, just read a few pages. If you're not reading at all, yeah, set a timer and read 5 to 10 minutes a day, and just make sure to do it and develop their habit. But the main thing to a habit is decision, and you have to decide. So Without further ado, I'm going to start reading chapter 11 of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, endorsed by Andrew Carnegie. This great idea they had to interview the top leaders and teach these main models that are necessary. You can get this in all the ancient texts, but ultimately this breaks it down into our common language. Today's chapter is chapter 11, The Mystery of Sex Transmutation. And it basically talks about how the body energies that you have. I'll leave it to the text because it says it in an interesting way in this book, and you can receive it different ways. But ultimately, you don't want to waste your energy, and you don't want to be frivolous with any of your resources, specifically your body's energy. So yeah, like and subscribe, join our book club, and you'll have 100 books read in 2 years. We read it out loud. That's how I recommend you read books, because it takes away the thoughts in your head and you're able to listen more. And then if you have these natural thoughts that are evolving your ideas, which is the intention I have behind here, for your ideas to evolve and to really just expand where you're at. Because like they said, the real riches are the ones in the mind. I want you to solve the issues you have, the projects you have, um, the ideas you're thinking about, and evolve them into a manner that you really, just expand your thinking beyond there. And you're able to more easily finish your project. You're able to more easily, come up with a new idea, like $1 million idea, right? Like that's why it's Think and Grow Rich. Like all you need is one idea that you need to act on. And then of course there are some stories where people get it, within a few days, a week, a couple months, but ultimately to work well with the universe and with God. Hey Anna, nice to see you. The best way is to, sorry, I had it on the tip of my tongue. The best way to work with God and the universe is to take, slow incremental steps so that you have that knowledge, well implemented. So that goal in the future, and then work towards it every single day with good habits. All right, appreciate y'all. If you like and subscribe, it helps my channel grow, the community grow. Ultimately, we're trying to get good information out. That's why we started this book club, daily live stream on my channel here. But ultimately, if you, would like to see one of my lives in the future, like and subscribe. The algorithm will put you there. And Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Chapter 11, The Mystery of Sex Transmutation, the 10th Step to Riches. Make sure to ask questions and we'll get to them. I appreciate you. I intend for you to receive from this book here the frequency of this book and this intention for you to evolve your thoughts, for you to truly get what it is you desire at max capacity. So ask questions, and without further ado, Chapter 11, The Mystery of Sex Transmutation, the 10th Step to Riches. The meaning of the word transmute is, in simple language, the changing or transferring of one element or form of energy into another. The emotion of sex brings into being a state of mind. Because of ignorance on the subject, this state of mind is generally associated with the physical, because of improper influences to which most people have been subjected in acquiring knowledge of sex. Things essentially physical have highly biased the mind. The emotion of sex has behind it the possibility of three constructive potentialities. One, the perpetuation of humankind. Two, the maintenance of health as a therapeutic agency. It has no equal. Three, the transformation of mediocrity into genius through transmutation. Sex transmutation is simple and easily explained. It means the switching of the mind from the thoughts of physical expression to thoughts of some other nature. Sex desire is the most powerful of human desires. When driven by this desire, people develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability unknown to them at other times. So strong and impelling is the desire for sexual contact that people freely run the risk of life and reputation to indulge it. When harnessed and redirected along other lines, the positive attributes of this motivating force may be used as powerful creative forces in literature, art, or any other profession or calling, including, of course, the accumulation of riches. The transmutation of sex energy calls for the exercise of willpower, to be sure, but the reward is worth the effort. The desire for sexual expression is inborn and natural. The desire cannot and should not be submerged or eliminated, but it should be given an outlet through forms of expression that enrich in the body, mind, and spirit. If not given this form of outlet through transmutation, it will seek outlets through purely physical channels. A river may be dammed and its water controlled for a time, but eventually will force an outlet. The same is true of the emotion of sex. It may be submerged and controlled for a time, but its very nature causes it to be ever seeking means of expression. If it is not transmuted into some creative effort, it will find a less worthy outlet. Fortunate indeed are those who have discovered how to give sex emotion an outlet through some form of creative effort, for they have, by that discovery, lifted themselves to the status of genius. Scientific research on the backgrounds of high achieving men, unfortunately, no similar studies have been made about highly successful women, has disclosed these significant facts. 1. The men of greatest achievement are those who with highly developed sex natures, men who have learned the art of sex transmutation. 2. The men who have accumulated great fortunes and achieved outstanding recognition in literature, art, industry, architecture, and the professions were motivated by the influence of woman. The research from which these astounding discoveries were made went back through the pages of biography and history for more than 2,000 years. Wherever there was evidence available in connection with the lives of men of great achievement, it indicated most convincingly that they possessed highly developed sex natures. The emotion of sex is an irresistible force, against which there can be no such opposition as an immovable body. When driven by this emotion, men become gifted with a superpower for action. Immovable body. Oh, pardon me. When driven by this emotion, men become gifted with a superpower for action. Understand this truth, and you will catch the significance of the statement that sex transmutation will lift one to the status of a genius. The emotion of sex contains the secret of creative ability. Destroy the sex glands, whether in man or beast, and you have removed the major source of action. For proof of this, observe what happens to any animal after it has been castrated. A bull becomes as docile as a cow after it has been altered sexually. Sex alteration takes out of the male, whether man or beast, all the fight that was in him. Sex alteration of the female has the same effect. The 10 mind stimuli. The human mind responds to stimuli through which it might be keyed up to high rates of vibration, known as enthusiasm, creative imagination, intense desire, etc. The stimuli to which the mind responds most freely are 1. The desire for sex expression. 2. Love. 3. A burning desire for fame, power, financial gain, money. 4. Music. 5. Friendship between either those of the same sex or those of the opposite sex. 6. a mastermind alliance based upon the harmony of two or more people who ally themselves for spiritual or temporal advancement. 7. Mutual suffering, such as that experienced by people who are persecuted. 8. Autosuggestion. 9. Fear. 10. Narcotics and alcohol. These are the 10 mind stimuli. The desire for sex expression comes at the head of the list of stimuli that most effectively step up the vibrations of the mind and start the wheels of physical action. 8 of these stimuli are natural and constructive. 2 are destructive. The list is here presented to enable you to make a comparative study of the major source of mind stimulation. From this study, it will be readily seen that the emotion of sex is, by great odds, the most intense and powerful of all mind stimuli. This comparison is necessary as a foundation for proof of the statement. I just had this moment again. So this is the beauty about books and books with high frequency. I had another epiphanic moment. That's just a moment of, epiphany or clarity that I have. And it's just oftentimes it's either a future thought, an evolved idea, or it's a past thought, an evolved idea over that thought. So that's why I do daily breathwork streams. That's why I do daily, reading of books. That's why join in, if you like and subscribe, you'll join into our club. But that's what we said podcast, because I interview people, and then if you're on our newsletter, I'll send you the interview. Their best ideas, right? The people on our list that we have, from the PBD podcast, for instance, Patrick Bet-David, Vince, Alex Hermosi, who's actually releasing a book today. If you're not on his live event, at least sign up for that one. It's going to be a good event, I'm sure. I can't believe I just had this epiphanic thought in this sentence. I'm literally reading all the words. I'm focusing on the words and what I'm saying, I'm hearing. But I had this moment back, when I was, 12 years ago. And I had a totally separate perspective to that moment now. And it's mind-boggling. This is how you evolve your thoughts in life. And you have to do it. Join our book club. Read daily if you don't want to, read with us. Whew. From this study, it will be readily seen that the emotion of sex is, by great odds, the most intense and powerful of all mind stimuli. And after having that thought, I know my life's going to be better. It's insane. This comparison is necessary as a foundation for proof of the statement that transmutation of sex energy may lift one to the status of a genius. Let us find out what constitutes a genius. A good definition of a genius is a person who has discovered how to increase the vibrations of thought to the point where they can freely communicate with sources of knowledge not available through the ordinary rate of vibration of thought. Kind of like that moment I just had 2 minutes ago. The person who thinks will want to ask some questions concerning this definition of genius. I thought there should be a comma there, but who knows? The person who thinks will want to ask some questions concerning the definition of genius. The first question will be, how may one communicate with sources of knowledge which are not available through the ordinary vibration of thought? The next question will be, are there known sources of knowledge which are available only to geniuses? And if so, what are these sources and exactly how may they be reached? We shall offer proof of the soundness of some of the more important statements made in this book, or at least we shall offer evidence through which you may secure your own proof through experimentation. In doing so, we shall answer both of these questions. Genius is developed through the sixth sense. The reality of the sixth sense has been fairly well established. The sixth sense is creative imagination. The faculty of creative imagination is one of the majority of people never use during an entire lifetime, and if used at all, it usually happens by mere accident. A relatively small number of people use with deliberation and purpose for thought the faculty of creative imagination. Those who use this faculty voluntarily and with understanding of its functions are geniuses. The faculty of creative imagination is the direct link between the definite mind of humans and infinite intelligence. Also called revelations referred to it in the place, pardon me, all so-called revelations referred to in the realm of religion, and all discoveries of basic or new principles in the field of invention take place through the faculty of creative imagination. When ideas or concepts flash into one's mind, like I experienced just a moment ago, through what is popularly called a hunch, they come from one or more of the following sources. 1. Infinite intelligence. 2. The subconscious mind in which is stored every sense, impression, and thought impulse that ever reached the brain through any of the 5 senses. 3. The mind of some other person who has just released the thought or picture of the idea or concept through conscious thought. 4. The other person's subconscious storehouse. There are no other known sources from which inspired ideas or hunches may be received. The creative imagination functions best when the mind is vibrating due to some form of mind stimulation at an exceedingly high rate. That is, when the mind is functioning at a rate of vibration higher than that of ordinary or normal thought. And you might be like, how is the mind vibrating at a higher thought? Well, have you ever read Power versus Force or heard of this book? There is a concept of force, like forcing someone to do something, or power, giving, manipulation and just having the power to adjust one's thought. Anyway, it talks about where we are vibrationally as a human species on this planet, right? And there are thought forms like hate that are lower frequency. Well, frequency is just a rate of vibration. That's what frequency is. Meanwhile, love is a higher rate of vibration. It is a higher frequency. So if you have a general well-being thought for a greater amount of people, things, and life, then you are a higher rate of vibration. So your thoughts need to be at a higher frequency, a higher rate of vibration. I wanted to say it another way here because that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. You have to have higher frequency, and fear is a lower frequency. But we do have to just walk through it in confidence sometimes. And listen, when brain action has been stimulated, Napoleon says, when brain action has been stimulated through one or more of the 10 mind stimulants, it has the effect of lifting the individual far above the horizon of ordinary thought and permits them to envision distance, scope, and quality of thoughts not available on the lower plane. Please ask any questions you have. These thoughts not available on the lower plane, such as that occupied while engaged in solving the problems of business and professional routine. The whole point of us being here. When lifted to this higher level of thought through any form of mind stimulation, an individual occupies relatively the same position as someone who has ascended in a plane. Interesting. When lifted to this higher level of thought through any form of mind stimulation, an individual occupies relatively the same position as someone who has ascended in a plane. That's interesting because I have heard from teachers on the matter that when you are on a plane, because of the level of just the height, your mind thinks differently and actually higher frequency. And I've experienced it. I do oftentimes. Some of my best meditations are up there, and I'm more relaxed. While still on the ground, they may see over and beyond the horizon line, which limits their vision. Moreover, while on this higher level of thought, the individual is not hampered or bound by any of the stimuli that circumscribe and limit their vision while wrestling with problems of gaining the 3 basic necessities of food, clothing, and shelter. They are in a world of thought in which the ordinary workaday thoughts have been as effectively removed as are the hills, valleys, and other limitations of physical vision when rising in an airplane. While someone is on this exalted plane of thought, the creative faculty of the mind is given freedom for action. The way has been cleared for the sixth sense to function. It becomes receptive to ideas that could not reach the individual under any other circumstances. The sixth sense is the faculty that marks the difference between a genius and an ordinary individual. The more this faculty is used, the more alert and receptive the creative faculty becomes to vibrations or originating outside the individual's subconscious mind. And the more the individual relies upon it and makes demands upon it for thought impulses. This faculty can be cultivated and developed only through use. That which is known as one's conscience operates entirely through the faculty of the sixth sense. Give me just one moment. I'll be right back. 20, 30 seconds. Thank you all. Sorry, it took a moment. Full disclosure, I usually start by running and eliminate my some of my inflammation through that way. And I have a little bit here because I was like, I want to read first today. I want to do the live book club stream. If you're just joining us for the first time, like and subscribe to join us in the future live calls. But we are reading Think and Grow Rich, chapter 11. I stopped in the middle of this chapter on this section on geniuses developed through the sixth sense. So check this out. That which is known as one's conscience operates entirely through the faculty of the sixth sense. The great artists, writers, musicians, and poets become great because they acquire the habit of relying upon the still small voice which speaks from within through the faculty of creative imagination. It is a fact well known to people who have keen imaginations that their best ideas come through so-called hunches. There is a great orator who does not attain greatness until he closes his eyes and begins to rely entirely upon the faculty of creative imagination. When asked why he closed his eyes just before the climaxes of his oratory, he replied, I do it because when I speak through ideas which come to me from within. I do it because then I speak through ideas which come to me from within. One of America's most successful and best known financiers followed the habit of closing his eyes for 2 or 3 minutes before making a decision. When asked why he did this, he replied, with my eyes closed, I am able to draw upon a source of superior intelligence. Dr. Elmer R. Gates of Chevy Chase, Maryland, created more than 200 useful patents, many of them basic through the process of cultivating and using the creative faculty. His method is significant to anyone interested in attaining the status of genius, in which category Dr. Gates unquestionably belonged to. Dr. Gates was one of the really great, thought less publicized scientists of the world. Dr. Gates was one of the really great, though less publicized scientists of the world. Excuse me. In his laboratory, he had what he called his personal communication room, It was practically soundproof and so arranged that all light could be shut out. It was equipped with a small table on which he kept a pad of writing paper. In front of the table on the wall was an electric push button which controlled the lights. When Dr. Gates desired to draw upon the forces available to him through his creative imagination, he would go into this room, seat himself at the table, shut off the lights, and concentrate upon the known factors of the invention on which he was working, remaining in that position until ideas began to flash into his mind in connection with the unknown factors of the invention. Wow! I just had several epiphanic thoughts, several epiphanies. The fact that he's going into this dark, soundproof room, and then when an idea comes to mind, he puts on these lights. And then beyond that, the fact that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about going into the unknown with your eyes closed, and this is where you receive more in the unknown, not in the material matter that is apparently in front of you. That's really interesting. It's like if you just close out these and close out these, you can receive more just by knowing more in the vibration. That's really interesting. Well, that's what's happening. My apologies. When Dr. Gates desired to draw upon the forces available to him through his creative imagination, he would go into this room, seat himself at the table, shut off the lights, and concentrate about the known factors of the invention on which he was working, remaining in that position until ideas began to flash into his mind in connection with the unknown factors of the invention. On one occasion, ideas came through so fast that he was forced to write for almost 3 hours. When the thoughts stopped flowing and he examined his notes, he found they contained a minute description of principles that had no parallel among the known idea of the scientific world. Moreover, the answer to his problem was intelligently presented in those notes. In this manner, Dr. Gates completed over 200 patents, which had been begun but not completed by half-baked brains. Evidence of the truth of this statement is in the United States Patent Office. Dr. Gates earned his living by sitting for ideas for individuals and corporations. Some of the largest corporations in America paid him substantial fees by the hour for sitting for ideas. The reasoning faculty is often faulty because it is largely guided by our accumulated experience. Not all knowledge that we accumulate through experience is accurate. Ideas received through the creative faculty are much more reliable because they come from sources more reliable than any available to the reasoning faculty of the mind. The major difference between the genius and the ordinary crank inventor may be found in the fact that the genius works through his faculty of creative imagination, while the crank knows nothing of this faculty. The scientific inventor, such as Mr. Edison and Dr. Gates, makes use of both the synthetic and the creative faculties of imagination. For example, scientific inventors or geniuses begin an invention by organizing and combining the known idea or principles accumulated through experience, through the synthetic faculty, the reasoning faculty. If they find this accumulated knowledge to be insufficient for the completion of the invention, they then draw upon the sources of knowledge available to them through their creative faculty. The method by which this is done varies with the individual, but this is the sum and substance of the procedure. First of all, bonus one. Follow your hunches, yo. If you get anything from this chapter, make sure you're tuning in at a higher rate of frequency Dude, follow your hunches as long as they are you being well with others. I am not here to tell you you should harm others. Be well with others, be well with yourself. Karma's a real thing. Follow your hunches. The method by which this is done varies with the individual, but this is the sum and substance of the procedure. One, they stimulate their minds so that they vibrate on a higher than average plane using one or more of the 10 mind stimulants or some other stimulant of their choice. Two, they concentrate upon the known factors, the finished part of the invention, and create in their minds a perfect picture of known factors, the unfinished parts of the invention. They hold this picture in mind until it has been taken over by the subconscious mind, and then relax by clearing their minds of all thought and wait for the answer to pop up. Sometimes the results are both definite and immediate. At other times, the results are negative, depending upon the state of development of the sixth sense or creative faculty. Mr. Edison tried out more than 10,000 different combinations of ideas through the synthetic faculty of his imagination before he tuned in through the creative faculty and got the answer that perfected the incandescent light. His experience was similar when he produced the talking machine. I think that's the telephone. There is plenty of reliable evidence that the faculty of creative imagination exists. This evidence is available through the accurate analysis of people who have become leaders in their respective callings without having had extensive educations. Lincoln was a notable example of a leader who achieved greatness through the discovery and use of his faculty of creative imagination. He discovered and began to use this faculty as the result of the stimulation of love, which he experienced after he met Anne Rutledge. The pages of history are filled with records of great leaders whose achievements may be traced directly to the influence of women who aroused the creative faculties of their minds through the stimulation of sex desire. Napoleon Bonaparte was one of these. When inspired by his first wife, Josephine, he was irresistible and invincible. When inspired by his first wife, Josephine, he was irresistible and invincible. When his better judgment or reasoning faculty prompted him to put Josephine aside, he began to decline. His defeat and St. Helena were not far distant. If good taste would permit, stay hydrated, my friends. If good taste would permit, we might easily mention scores of well-known men who climbed to great heights of achievement under the stimulating influence of their wives, only to drop back to destruction after money and power went to their heads, and they put aside the old wife for a new one. Napoleon was not the only man to discover that sex influence. Napoleon was not the only man to discover that sex influence from the right source is more powerful than any substitute of expediency which may be created by mere reason. The human mind responds to stimulation. Among the greatest and most powerful of these stimuli is the urge of sex. When harnessed and transmuted, this driving force is capable of lifting people into that higher sphere of thought that enables them to master the sources of worry and petty annoyance that beset their pathway on the lower plane. Unfortunately, only the geniuses have made the discovery. Unfortunately, only the geniuses have made the discovery. Others have accepted the experience of sex urge without discovering one of its major potentialities, a fact that accounts for the great number of others as compared to the limited number of geniuses. Sex energy is the creative energy of all geniuses. There never has been and never will be a great leader, builder, or artist lacking in this driving force of sex. Surely no one will understand these statements to mean that all who are highly sexed are geniuses. One attains to the status of a genius only when and if one's mind is stimulated so that it draws upon the forces available through the creative faculty of the imagination. Chief among the stimuli with which this stepping up of the vibrations may be produced is sex energy. The mere possession of this energy is not sufficient to produce a genius. The energy must be transmuted from desire for physical contact into some other form of desire and action before it will lift one to the status of a genius. Far more becoming geniuses because of great sex desires, all too many people. Far from becoming geniuses because of great sex desires, all too many people lower themselves through the misunderstanding and misuse of this great force to the status of the lower animals. Why people seldom succeed before 40. I discovered from the analysis of over 25,000 people that those who succeed in an outstanding way seldom do so before the age of 40. More often, they do not strike their real pace until they are well beyond the age of 50. This fact was so astounding that it prompted me to go into the study of its cause most carefully, carrying the investigation over a period of more than 12 years. This study disclosed that the major reason why the majority of people who succeed do not begin to do so before the age of 40 to 50 is their tendency to dissipate their energies through overindulgence in physical expression of the emotion of sex. Most people never learn that the urge of sex has other possibilities, which far transcend in importance that of mere physical expression. The majority of those who make this discovery do so after having wasted many years when the sex energy is at its height, prior to the age of 45 to 50. This is usually followed by noteworthy achievement. The lives of many people up to and sometimes well past the age of 40 reflect a continued dissipation of energies which could have been more profitably channeled. Their finer and more powerful emotions are sown widely to the four winds. Out of this habit grew the term sowing one's wild oats. The desire for sexual expression is by far the strongest and most impelling of all the human emotions. For this very reason, this desire, when harnessed and transmuted into action other than that of physical expression, may raise one to the status of a genius. One of America's most able businessmen frankly admitted that his attractive secretary was responsible for most of the plans he created. He confessed that her presence lifted him to heights of creative imagination such as he could experience under no other stimulus. History is now lacking in examples of people who attain the status of geniuses as the result of using artificial mind stimulants in the form of alcohol and narcotics. Edgar Allan Poe wrote The Raven while under the influence of alcohol, dreaming dreams that mortal never dared to dream before. Dreaming dreams that mortal never dared to dream before. James Whitcomb Riley did his best writing. James Whitcomb Riley did his best writing while under the influence of alcohol. Perhaps it was thus he saw the ordered intermingling of the real and the dream, the mill above the river and the mist above the stream. Robert Burns wrote best when intoxicated, "For auld lang syne, my dear, we'll take a cup of kindness yet, for auld lang syne." But let it be remembered that many such people have destroyed themselves in the end. Nature has prepared her own potions with which people may safely stimulate their minds so they vibrate on a plane that enables them to tune in to fine and rare thoughts from the great unknown. Plane. No satisfactory substance No satisfactory substitute for nature's stimulants has ever been found. That's the only one. The great unknown. That is the only substance. The mystery of faith. You hear that? The mystery of the unknown. That's so silly. I was hearing this in a podcast yesterday. That's why you should interview more people. Friends, family, strangers. Get different perspectives. Psychologists recognize that there is a very close relationship between sex desires and spiritual urges, a fact which accounts for the peculiar behavior of people who participate in the orgies known as religious revivals, common among the primitive types. The world is ruled and the destiny of civilization is established by the human emotions. I don't know what he's talking about in the religious revivals, if they're actual orgies or just mind orgies. The world is ruled and the destiny of civilization is established by the human emotions. People are influenced in their actions not by reason, but so much as by feelings. The creative faculty of the mind is set into action entirely by emotions and not by cold reason. The most powerful of all human emotions is that of sex. There are other mind stimulants, some of which have been listed, but no one of them nor all of them combined can equal the driving power of sex. A mind stimulant is any influence that will either temporarily or permanently increase the vibrations of thought. The 10 major stimulants described are those most commonly resorted to. Through these sources, one may commune with infinite intelligence or enter at will the storehouse of the subconscious mind, either one's own or that of another person. A teacher who has trained and directed the efforts of more than 30,000 salespeople and made the astounding discovery that highly sexed people are the most efficient sales reps. The explanation is that the factor of personality known as personal magnetism is nothing more nor less than sex energy. Highly sexed people always have a plentiful supply of magnetism. Magnetism. Through cultivation and misunderstanding, this vital force may be drawn upon and used to great advantage in the relationships between people. This energy may be communicated to others through the following media. 1. The handshake. The touch of the hand indicates instantly the presence of magnetism or the lack of it. 2. The tone of voice. Magnetism or sex energy is the factor with which the voice may be colored or made musical and charming. 3. Posture and carriage of the body. Highly sexed people move briskly and with grace and ease. 4. The vibrations of thought. Highly sexed people mix the emotion of sex with their thoughts or may do so at will and in that way may influence, the number 4, the vibrations of thought. Highly sexed people mix the emotion of sex with their thoughts, or may do so at will, and in that way may influence those around them. 5. Body adornment. People who are highly sexed are usually very careful about their personal appearance. They usually select clothing of a style becoming to their personality, physique, complexion, etc. When employing salespeople, the more capable sales manager looks for the quality of personal magnetism as the first requirement for the job. People who lack sex energy will never become enthusiastic or inspire others with enthusiasm, and enthusiasm is one of the most important requisites in salesmanship, no matter what one is selling. The public speaker, orator, preacher, lawyer, or salesperson, wow, just had another epiphany. This is why you got to read books. Read books. Read them more. Read them more often. Join our book club. Like and subscribe and join. You have to take in more knowledge like this. Stop just taking in perspectives that are being taught. Read books that have been around for a long while. This is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I don't know if I read this one. So number 5, body adornment. People who are highly sexed or usually very careful about their personal appearance. They usually select clothing of a style becoming to their personality, physique, complexion, etc. When employing salespeople, the more capable sales manager looks for the quality of personal magnetism as the first requirement for the job. People who lack sex energy will never become enthusiastic or inspire others with enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is one of the most important requisites in salesmanship, no matter what one is selling. The public speaker, orator, preacher, lawyer, or salesperson who is lacking in sex energy is a flop as far as being able to influence others is concerned. Couple with this the fact that most people can be influenced only through an appeal to their emotions, and you will understand the importance of sex energy as a part of the salesperson's natural ability. Master sales reps attain the status of sex energy as a part of the salesperson's natural ability. I just skipped a line there. The public speaker, orator, preacher, lawyer, or salesperson who is lacking in sex energy is a flop as far as being able to influence others is concerned. Couple with this the fact that most people can be influenced only through an appeal to their emotions. Hold on, what? The public speaker, orator, preacher, lawyer, or salesperson who is lacking in sex energy is a flop as far as being able to influence others is concerned. Makes sense? Couple with this the fact that most people can be influenced only through an appeal to their emotions. And you will understand that the importance of sex energy is a part of the salesperson's natural ability. Master sales reps attain the status of mastery in selling because they either consciously or unconsciously transmute the energy of sex into sales enthusiasm. In this statement may be found a very practical suggestion as to the actual meaning of sex transmutation. Salespeople who know how to take their minds off the subject of sex and direct it in sales effort with as much enthusiasm and determination as they would apply to its original purpose have acquired the art of sex transmutation. I'll reread a couple of these here. Master sales reps attain the status of mastery in selling because they either consciously or unconsciously transmute the energy of sex into sales enthusiasm. In this statement may be found a very practical suggestion as to the actual meaning of sex transmutation. Salespeople who know how to take their minds off the subject of sex and direct it in sales effort with as much enthusiasm and determination as they would apply to its original purpose have acquired the art of sex transmutation, whether they know it or not. The majority of salespeople who transmute their sex energy do so without being in the least aware of what they are doing or how they are doing it. Transmutation of sex energy calls for more willpower than the average person cares to use for this purpose. Those who find it difficult to summon willpower sufficient for transmutation may gradually acquire this ability. One more time. Those who find it difficult to summon willpower sufficient for transmutation may gradually acquire this ability. Makes sense? The reward for the practice is more than worth the effort. Holy cow. The entire subject of sex is one of which the majority of people appear to be unpardonably ignorant. The urge of sex has been grossly misunderstood, slandered, and burlesqued by the ignorant and the evil-minded for so long that the very word sex is seldom used in polite society. Men and women who are known to be blessed, yes, blessed, with highly sexed natures are usually looked upon with suspicion. Instead of being called blessed, they are usually called cursed. Millions of people, even in this age of enlightenment, have developed inferiority complexes because of this false belief that a highly sexed nature is a curse. These statements of the virtue of sex energy should not be construed as justification for the libertine. The emotion of sex is a virtue only when used intelligently and with discrimination. It may often be misused to such an extent that it debases instead of enriches both body and mind. Wow. The better use of this power is the burden of this chapter. It seemed quite significant to the author when he made the discovery that practically every great male leader whom he had the privilege of analyzing was a man whose achievements were largely of whom the public had heard little or nothing. In a few instances, the source of inspiration has been traced to the other woman. Perhaps such cases may not be entirely unknown to you. Intemperance in sex habits is just as detrimental as temperance in habits of drinking and eating. In this age in which we live, an age that began with World War I, intemperance in habits of sex is common. Pardon. Intemperance in sex habits is just as detrimental as intemperance in habits of drinking and eating. In this age in which we live, an age that began with World War I, intemperance in habits of sex is common. This orgy of indulgence may account for the shortage of great leaders. No one can avail of the sources of creative imagination while dissipating them. Whoa. No one can avail of the forces of creative imagination while dissipating them. Humans are the only creatures on earth that violate nature's purpose in this connection. Every other animal indulges its sex nature in moderation and with purpose that harmonizes with the laws of nature. Every other animal responds to the call of sex only in season. The human inclination is to declare open season. I have never received this chapter this way before. I'm getting so much epiphany. Every intelligent person knows that stimulation in excess through alcoholic drink and narcotics is a form of intemperance that destroys the vital organs of the body, including the brain. Not every person knows, however, that overindulgence in sex expression may become a habit as destructive and as detrimental to creative effort as narcotics or alcohol. A sex-mad person is not essentially different from a dope-mad person. Both have lost control over their faculties of reason and willpower. Sexual overindulgence may not only destroy reason and willpower, it may also lead to either temporary or permanent insanity. Many cases of hypochondria, imaginary illness, grow out of habits developed in ignorance of the true function of sex. From these brief, wow, I am having so much epiphany. I hope you are as well. Please, if this is your first time, join and subscribe, because consistency is the main thing I teach about. You can achieve your goals as long as you're consistent. You set a big goal, you know how to achieve it, and you just do that every single day, or the other way around, wherever you want. This is, I don't know, the 40th day of the book club, maybe the 28th, I don't know, but I'm exponentially receiving epiphanic higher rate of vibration thought through what I'm reading. Join us. Like and subscribe. DM us in the comments. Man. A sex-mad person is not essentially different from a dope-mad person. Both have lost control over their faculties of reason and willpower. Sexual overindulgence may not only destroy reason and willpower, it may also lead to either temporary or permanent insanity. Many cases of hypochondria, imaginary illness, grow out of habits developed in ignorance of the true function of sex. From these brief references to the subject, it may be readily seen that ignorance on the subject of sex transmutation forces stupendous penalties on the one hand and withholds equally stupendous benefits on the other hand. Widespread ignorance about sex is due to the fact that the subject has been surrounded with mystery and beclouded by dark silence. Sinful. Base things in love first. The conspiracy of mystery and silence has increased curiosity and desire to acquire more knowledge on this verboten subject, to the shame of all lawmakers and most physicians. By training best qualified to educate youth on that subject, such information has been easily available. The conspiracy of mystery and silence has increased curiosity and desire to acquire more knowledge on this verboten subject, to the shame of all lawmakers and most physicians. By training best qualified to educate youth on that subject, such information has not been easily available. Seldom does an individual embark upon highly creative effort in any field of endeavor before the age of 40. For the average person, the greatest capacity to create is between 40 and 60. These statements are based on careful analysis of thousands of men and women, and they should be encouraging to those who fail to arrive before the age of 40 and to those who become frightened at the approach of old age around the 40-year mark. The years between 40 and 50 are, as a rule, the most fruitful. One should approach this age not with fear and trembling, but with hope and eager anticipation. Pardon me. Can I have a little water here? Right? Gotta stay hydrated, especially when speaking out loud. If you want evidence that most people do not begin to do their best work before the age of 40, study the records of successful people and you will find it. Henry Ford had not hit his pace of achievement until he had passed the age of 40. Andrew Carnegie was well past 40 before he began to reap the rewards of his efforts. James J. Hill was still running a telegraph key at the age of 40. His stupendous achievements took place after that age. Biographies of industrialists and financiers are filled with evidence that the period from 40 to 60 is the most productive age. Between the age of 30 and 40, one begins to learn, if one ever learns, the art of sex transmutation. I think I'm just learning it. And I knew different aspects of it, but I've received something today that I highly wish you understand and you use it in the best light possible. Between the ages of 30 and 40, one begins to learn, if one ever learns, the art of sex transmutation. This discovery is generally accidental, and more often than otherwise, the people who make it are totally unconscious of this discovery. This discovery is generally accidental. And more often than otherwise, the people who make it are totally unconscious of this discovery. They may observe that their powers of achievement have increased around the age of 35 to 40, but in most cases, they are not familiar with the cause of this change. That nature begins to harmonize the emotions of love and sex in the individual between the ages of 30 and 40 so that they may draw upon these great forces and apply them jointly as stimuli to action. Sex alone is a mighty urge to action, but its forces are like a cyclone. They are often uncontrollable. When the emotion of love begins to mix itself with the emotion of sex, the result is calmness of purpose, poise, accuracy of judgment, and balance. What person who has reached the age of 40 is so unfortunate as to be unable to analyze these statements and to corroborate them by personal experience? Love, romance, and sex are all emotions capable of driving people to the heights of superachievement. Love is the emotion that serves as a safety valve and ensures balance, poise, and constructive effort. When combined, these three emotions may lift one to the altitude of a genius. There are geniuses, however, who know little of the emotion of love. Most of them may be found engaged in some form of action which is destructive or at least not based upon justice and fairness towards others. If good taste would permit, a dozen geniuses could be named in the field of industry and finance who ride ruthlessly over the rights of others. They seem totally lacking in conscience. The emotions are states of mind. Nature has provided us with a chemistry of the mind, which operates in a manner similar to the principles of chemistry of matter. A chemist may create a deadly poison by mixing certain elements, none of which are in themselves harmful in the right proportions. The emotions may likewise be combined to create a deadly poison. The emotions of sex and jealousy, when mixed, may turn a person into an insane beast. The presence of any one or more of the destructive emotions in the human mind, through the chemistry of the mind, sets up a poison that may destroy one's sense of justice and fairness. In extreme cases, man, I think you should have to read this book once a year. This is insane. I never really realized. I know I get you're getting it in audio right now, but man, I hope you pick this book up and read it, because it's different if you read it out loud yourself, obviously, than hearing it. But I think if you are paying attention to everything I'm saying and you re-listen, you'll be good. The emotions of sex and jealousy, when mixed, may turn a person into an insane beast. The presence of any one or more of the destructive emotions in the mind, through the chemistry of the mind, sets up a poison that may destroy one's sense of justice and fairness. In extreme cases, the presence of any combination of these emotions in the mind may destroy one's reason. In extreme cases, the presence of any combination of these emotions in the mind may destroy one's reason. The road to genius consists of the development, control, and use of sex, love, and romance. Briefly, the process may be stated as follows. Encourage the presence of these emotions as the dominating thoughts in your mind, and discourage the presence of all the destructive emotions. The mind is a creature of habit. It thrives upon the dominating thoughts fed it. Through the faculty of willpower, you may discourage the presence of any emotion and encourage the presence of any other. Control of the mind through the power of will is not difficult. Control comes from persistence and habit. The secret of control lies in understanding the process of transmutation. When any negative emotion presents itself in your mind, it can be transmuted into a positive or constructive emotion by the simple procedure of changing your thoughts. There is no other road to genius than through voluntary self-effort. People may attain great heights of financial or business achievement solely by the driving force of sex energy, but history is filled with the evidence that they may, and usually do, carry with them certain character traits which rob them of the ability to either hold or enjoy their good fortune. This is worthy of analysis, thought, and meditation, for it states a truth, the knowledge of which may be helpful to all people. Ignorance of this has cost thousands of people their privilege of happiness, even though they possessed riches. The emotions of love and sex leave their unmistakable marks upon the features. Moreover, these signs are so visible that all who wish may read them. People who are driven by the storm of passion, based upon sex desires alone, plainly advertise that fact to the entire world by the expression of their eyes and the lines of their faces. The emotion of love, when mixed with the emotion of sex, softens, modifies, and beautifies the facial expression. No character analyst is needed to tell you this. You may observe it for yourself. The emotion of love brings out and develops the artistic and aesthetic nature of a person. It leaves its impress upon one's very soul, even after the fire has been subdued by time and circumstance. Memories of love never pass. They linger, guide, and influence long after the source of stimulation has faded. There is nothing new in this. Every person who has been moved by genuine love knows that it leaves enduring traces upon the human heart. The effect of love endures because love is spiritual in nature. Those who cannot be stimulated to great heights of achievement by love are hopeless. They are dead, though they may seem to live. Even the memories of love are sufficient to lift one to a higher plane of creative effort. The major force of love may spend itself and pass away like a fire that has burned itself out, but it leaves behind indelible marks as evidence that it passed that way. Its departure often prepares the human heart for a still greater love. Go back into your yesterdays at times and bathe your mind in the beautiful memories of past love. It will soften the influence of the present worries and annoyances. It will give you a source of escape from the unpleasant realities of life. And maybe, who knows, your mind will yield to you during this temporary retreat into the world of fantasy, ideas or plans which may change the entire financial or spiritual status of your life. If you believe yourself unfortunate because you have loved and lost, perish the thought, one who has loved truly can never lose entirely. Love is whimsical and temperamental. Its nature is ephemeral and transitory. It comes when it pleases and goes away without warning. Accept and enjoy it while it remains, but spend no time worrying about its departure. Worry will never bring it back. Dismiss also the thought that love never comes but once. Love may come and go, times without number, but there are no two love experiences that affect you in just the same way. There may be, and there usually is, one love experience that leaves a deeper imprint on the heart than all the others. But all love experiences are beneficial, except to the person who becomes resentful and cynical when love makes its departure. There should be no disappointment over love, and there would be none if people understood the difference between the emotions of love and sex. The major difference is that love is spiritual, while sex is biological. No experience that touches the human heart with a spiritual force can possibly. Man, now I think what I received is maybe something they didn't receive over 100 years ago. These things are just going to keep evolving. Join the book club by subscribing. Read this book on your own at least once a year and keep listening in here. There should be no disappointment over love, and there would be none if people understood the difference between the emotions of love and sex. The major difference is that love is spiritual while sex is biological. We need to define more the difference between spiritual and biological, especially with the current research that's being done. No experience that touches the human heart with a spiritual force can possibly be harmful, except through ignorance or jealousy. I would probably disagree with that line. Love is, without question, life's greatest experience. It brings us into communion with infinite intelligence. But I'm still going to receive what the author has here because it's some good. Like 99% of it is good. And some I might not understand yet. When mixed with the emotions of romance and sex, it may lead us far up the ladder of creative effort. The emotions of love and sex and romance are sides of the eternal triangle of achievement, building, genius. Nature creates geniuses through no other force. Love is an emotion with many sides, shades, and colors. The love one feels for parents or children is quite different from that which one feels for one's sweetheart. One is mixed with the emotion of sex while the other is not. The love one feels in true friendship is not the same as that felt for one's sweetheart, parents, or children, but it too is a form of love. Then there is the emotion of love for things inanimate, such as the love of nature's handiwork. But the most intense and burning of all these various kinds of love is that experienced in the blending of the emotions of love and sex. Marriages not blessed with the eternal affinity of love, properly balanced and proportioned with sex, cannot be happy ones and seldom endure. Love alone will not bring happiness in marriage, nor will sex alone. When these two beautiful emotions are blended, marriage may bring about a state of mind as close to the spiritual as one may ever know on this earthly plane. When these two beautiful emotions are blended, marriage may bring about a state of mind as close to the spiritual as one may ever know on this earthly plane. That's awesome. This earthly plane is a magical thing. When the emotion of romance is added to those of love and sex, when the emotion of romance is added to those of love and sex, the obstructions between the finite mind of man and infinite intelligence are removed. Then a genius has been born. Wow. What a different story is this to those usually associated with the emotion of sex. Here is an interpretation of the emotion that lifts it out of the commonplace and makes of it potter's clay in the hands of God, from which he fashions all that is beautiful and inspiring. It is an interpretation that would, when properly understood, bring harmony out of the chaos that exists too many marriages. What a different story is this to those usually associated with the emotion of sex. Here is an interpretation of the emotion that lifts it out of the commonplace and makes of it potter's clay in the hands of God, from which he fashions all that is beautiful and inspiring. It is an interpretation that would, when properly understood, bring harmony out of the chaos that exists in too many marriages. He fashions all that is beautiful and inspiring. It is an interpretation that would, when properly understood, bring harmony out of the chaos that exists in too many marriages. The disharmonies often expressed in the form of nagging may usually be tracked to lack of knowledge on the subject of sex, where love, romance, and the proper understanding of the emotion and function of sex abide. Where love, romance, and the proper understanding of the emotion and function of sex abide, there is no disharmony between married people. Dang, that is wicked. Next chapter is going to be chapter 12, the subconscious mind, the connecting link, the 11th step to riches. But man, chapter 10, the mystery of sex, chapter 11, the mystery of sex transmutation, the 10th step to riches. I have never had it read that way. I received so much from this. The main lesson I'm teaching here is stay consistent in whatever you're doing. Set a goal, usually something far flung a bit into the future. And man, I went to this barber a month ago and he cut off way too much. And it's not the way I wear my hair, but it's okay. And yeah, I'm thinking about that because I'm getting married in about a week and a half. And actually, I think 10 days now. I guess that's technically a week and a half. And I was thinking about it. I got to be at the barber in a week. Man, I appreciate you for being here. Definitely like and subscribe to join. But the main thing, stay consistent, whatever it is you're doing, if it is a worthwhile goal that is well with others. And you will achieve it as long as you keep going. Even if you stop for temporary moments, but if you do things daily, man, that's true consistency. Read daily, join our book club. That way, these major high frequency books, you don't have to necessarily read first on your own, just receive them. But man, I'm telling you, if you read it and if you read it out loud, you receive so much more from it because you get the full intention of the author, plus your thoughts always evolve. And if you're reading it out loud, you're knocking out the thoughts that are just, gibberish, ADD, ADHD thoughts, and you're able to receive even higher than that. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day, week, and best of it. See you next time, and